Many people, regardless of how much money they have in their portfolio, never feel like they have enough. And when you don't feel like you have enough, there's no amount of money that gives you that peace of mind that you're really searching for to feel content with what you have. So in today's video, I'm going to walk you through how can you determine what enough means for you so you can fully enjoy your retirement. Hey everybody, I'm James Conole, founder of Root Financial Partners, and I'm here to teach you what you need to know to create a secure retirement. There's a classic story that a lot of people love to tell, and there's a story of Joseph Heller, who is the author of Catch-22, and his friend Kurt Vonnegut. And they're at a party in Shelter Island hosted by a billionaire hedge fund manager. Now, Kurt Vonnegut, he reaches over, he says to Joseph Heller, he says, "This hedge fund manager made more money in a single day than you made in your entire career from sales of Catch-22. To which Joseph Heller leans over and responds, "Yes, but I have one thing he will never have. Enough." And there's something about that story that hits us, of that feeling of having enough, that contentment, that peace of mind with understanding there's no longer that striving or that reaching or that sense of having to be somewhere else to get to where you want to be. But what is enough? What does that look like for each of us? Unfortunately, it can't be distilled down to a single number. It's not $1 million or $2 million or $5 million or any number of dollars. It's something very specific to you. So in today's video, I want to walk you through how can you think about what enough means for you so that you can apply this to your financial situation to create that peace of mind that we're all looking for. To me, that first step in having enough is changing our mindset and changing the way we think about our portfolio. Because enough to me is a mindset. And to get to where we want to be and to experience enough, we need to make a mindset shift. And that mindset shift comes in terms of how we view our portfolio. As long as we view our portfolio as the thing, we will feel like we never have enough. Because when our portfolio is the thing, maybe the first goal is to get to $100,000. Then it's $500,000. Then it's $1 million. Then it's $2 million. Then it's $5 million. And the goalposts are constantly moving. So when we view our portfolio as the thing, the goal is to increase this, enough is going to be elusive. Enough is never actually going to come because there's always going to be someone with more money. There's always going to be someone with a greater portfolio balance. There's always going to be someone who's getting a greater rate of return on their money. So it's a mindset shift from thinking about our portfolio as the thing to thinking about our portfolio as the supporting thing, the thing that supports what's actually most important to us. Financial independence, providing for our family, being able to protect against what could possibly happen over the course of our lifetimes. So right now what I want to do is walk through a framework of how do you determine what your number is, what your enough number is. Not to say that you have to stop there or keep it set in stone, but just a helpful way of thinking about this to determine what you actually need. There's an author and a financial professional named Brian Portnoy, and he has a book called The Geometry of Wealth, which I have not read yet, but he uses a term quite often. And the term is called funded contentment. And he may use the term a little bit differently. Again, I have not read the book and the specifics of how he uses it, but I really love that term. Funded contentment, the thought of what are the things that are going to make us content? What are the things we're actually trying to plan and save and invest for? And how do we have a plan in place to fund those? So to me, the goal of how do we determine what is enough, or the process of determining what is enough, comes from something like that, a funded contentment. So step number one of how do you fund your contentment? How do you get enough? Well, number one is start with what is it that you're trying to ultimately accomplish. Is the goal to have $1 million in your portfolio or $5 million or $10 million? If so, that's probably going to be a fairly empty goal when you actually get there. Because once you get there, the goalposts are just going to move. You're going to want more. You're going to feel like you need more to get to that feeling of enough. But if the goal is actually to fund a lifestyle, or to take trips, or to provide for your family, or to be able to leave work, or to be able to do the things that you want to do, now we can view our portfolio in light of how can that support those goals, and we really can get to that amount. So let's look at this. How can we go through the process of understanding this? Number one, the first thing you do is set the money aside for a second. Disregard your 401k balance. Disregard how much you have in savings or investments or net worth. Completely ignore that in step number one. Step number two is ask yourself, what's most important to you? Is it financial freedom? Is it sending kids to college? Is it buying your dream home? Is it legacy to family or to charity? Is it protecting against what could go wrong? Start there. Start with what are actually the things that are most important, actually most valuable to you. Step three is now determine how much you need for all of these things. How much do you need to fund the contentment that would come from each of those things? So let's start with financial freedom. I'm going to walk through a very basic exercise. I know none of these are going to be specific. There's a whole lot more nuance and details that go in it. But start with financial freedom. How much do you need to feel financially free? Maybe it's $70,000 per year of income would allow you to step away from work, do what you want to do, and be fully content with that lifestyle. Well, okay, how much of that is maybe coming from Social Security right off the bat? Well, if $70,000 is your goal, your financial freedom goal. If $40,000, for example, is coming from Social Security per year, the rest, the 30% or the $30,000, that needs to come from your portfolio. So you could do a simple calculation. If $30,000 needs to come from your portfolio, what does that portfolio base need to look like to generate $30,000 per year? Well, you could use the rule of 4% to say $30,000 divided by 4% equals $750,000. Meaning if you had $750,000 using the rule of 4%, that could generate $30,000 per year, which on top of Social Security of $40,000 per year could get you that $70,000 per year of financial freedom. Obviously, this disregards taxes, this disregards different things. There's a whole lot more details to that, but just a basic exercise to say if financial freedom is the goal, now we can start to get to a number of how much do I need in my portfolio to fully fund that and to be content with my number, or to be content with what financial freedom looks like. That's the first step. Now, financial freedom or retirement might not be your only goal. Maybe it's buying a dream home. Well, what does that look like for you? Is it downsizing what you currently have and being able to pay cash for something in an area that you really love? Is it having to save up another $100,000 or $200,000 or some specific amount to get there? Whatever it is, think of what that amount is needed and set aside a different amount to fully fund that. Same thing for college. How much do you want to set aside for children or for grandchildren? Come up with these different numbers so that as we have these different goals, financial freedom, home, college, protecting against what could go wrong, legacy, we can start to assign a dollar value to each of them to understand how much do we need total to be able to fund all these different things. Now, all these different things, some may be important to you, some may not be. The thing is, this is unique to you, and this is why no one has the same exact number, no one has the same exact version of enough, because everybody's unique. So I'm just using these as an example, but understand which are most important to you and which would you like to apply to your specific situation. Now, let's go to legacy, for example. Let's assume you want to be able to leave $500,000 to each of your 2 children. So you need to have $1 million in your portfolio. Well, that $750,000 that we talked about, there may be some left over at the end, there may not be. We're kind of figuring out how much did you need to set aside to fund your financial freedom. Well, if you want an additional $1 million to be able to leave to children or to charity or to whatever it is, think about that too. Let's assume that you plan to have a 30-year retirement. Obviously, none of us know how long we're going to live, but assume that as a starting point. Well, if you want to leave $500,000 to each of your 2 children, disregard inflation for a second, that $1 million needs to come 30 years from now. Well, you have a time horizon, or that even though you're retired, you have a long enough time horizon where you could probably afford to invest pretty aggressively over that time horizon if the goal is legacy and leaving funds at that time. You have a 30-year time horizon. Well, if you use a financial calculator, what you'd find is if you grow at 8% per year on average, of course some years are higher, some are much lower, if you grew at 8% per year on average, if you were to set aside $100,000 today, that would grow to $1 million in 30 years. So going back to that funded contentment, or how much do you need to have enough, you need $750,000 for your financial freedom goal to generate the income you need to live comfortably. You might need additional $100,000 to be able to provide the legacy, assuming there's nothing left from your $750 when you're no longer here. And then you might also think about something like protection. So what if protection, or providing or protecting against, what if there's a premature death? What if there's a health event? What if there's a long-term care event? Well, how do we set aside an additional amount to protect against that? You're not going to have that sense of financial peace if you're constantly worried about, I know that we can spend today and I know that we're comfortable today, but what if one of us needs long-term care? What if there's a need for a skilled nursing facility? Those types of things can keep us up at night, even if we have enough income to meet our needs today to fully retire. So think about that as a separate goal. And for example, maybe you want to be able to self-fund a long-term care event. So what if you want to have $500,000 set aside in 20 years, knowing that you don't have long-term care insurance, again, this is just an example, if you want to have $500,000 set aside 20 years from today to be able to fund assisted living or to be able to fund a nursing facility, whatever it might be, well, if $500,000 is a goal 20 years from today, if you set aside funds today growing at 8% per year, you would need to set aside about $107,000 because that $107,000 growing at 8% would give you $500,000 20 years from today, which is almost like your long-term care insurance, except for your self-funding. If you don't get 8% per year growth, but maybe you get 6% per year growth, well, instead of needing $107,000 today to give you $500,000 in 20 years, you would need a higher amount to start with because you're not getting as much growth on that money. The amount that you would need is $156,000 today, which growing at 6% per year on average would give you $500,000 for long-term care, a one-time lump sum amount if you needed that money. So now as you think about how do I fund my enough, how do I fund my contentment over time? You have $750,000 that you need for your retirement income. You have an additional $100,000 that you want to have for legacy money that if you want to provide $500,000 for each child, again, just an arbitrary example, at the end of your retirement. And then you'll need an additional $150,000 for long-term care protection. So $750 plus $100 plus $150,000, that equals $1 million, which means once you have $1 million in your portfolio, plus if there's an additional amount for college or for dream home, if you want to add that on too, but that kind of gives you your enough. Now, once you work through this exercise, there's a very basic approach to it. Obviously, your numbers are going to be different. Your numbers are probably going to be a little bit nuanced and detailed. I'm just using a very high-level overview. But once you know what that number is, you can begin working through the exercise to see when will you be on track for that number. You know, if your number is $1 million and today you're at $800,000 or today you're at $500,000, what you can start to see is based upon how much longer you plan to work for and how much you're saving in some projected rate of return, how much longer until you reach enough. Now, once you hit this number, you have enough. Obviously, this is an oversimplification. This does not factor in how are you invested. This doesn't factor in tax strategy. This doesn't factor in maximizing Social Security. This doesn't factor in how do you take withdrawals. It's just a very high-level overview, but it is helpful to know what is your enough. The reason that's important is once you have enough, you can start to look at life a lot more intentionally. Are you continuing to work and save and grow your portfolio because you love what you do for work and you want to continue to work and there's no desire to step away? Wonderful. But once you've hit enough, if you're working a job that you don't enjoy, or if you're working a job that's preventing you from spending more time with your family, or doing more things when you have your health, or doing more things when you have your energy, or if you're working a job that is literally deteriorating your health because of the stress and the burden and the long hours, you have to start to ask yourself, what's the cost of continuing to work? What am I giving up by continuing to add to my portfolio balance in terms of years I'm taking off of my life, or health that's degrading, or my inability to do the things that are actually most important to me? So having that sense of enough is very important because it gives you a framework to view what's actually most important and to understand the trade-off of financial planning is not about growing your portfolio balance forever and ever and ever. It's about understanding what do you need from your portfolio balance, or what do you need to be doing to support what actually matters. It goes back to that mindset shift of the portfolio isn't the thing, the portfolio is the supporting thing. And how much of that supporting thing do you need to accomplish what's actually most important? Now, here's the thing. It's not bad to continue growing your portfolio even after you have enough. Like I said, the goal here isn't you don't go to work just because it gives you a paycheck. Now, sometimes you do. If you don't enjoy what you do for work, or if there's other things you'd rather be doing, then yes, that becomes the primary goal of work, is to have a financial means of supporting what you actually want to be doing. But you can have enough and keep growing. This isn't me telling you to go through this exercise, and if you have more than that enough amount, to go turn in your 2 weeks and fully retire. It is me telling you to be very intentional about that though. But if you love what you're doing for work and you're continuing to save and you're continuing to grow and you just enjoy that growth aspect, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's no one that should be able to tell you what your number is and when you should stop and what you should be doing. Only you can do that. But the theme of this is to be intentional with what you're doing, not doing it because it's something that you've already been doing. It's sometimes easier to keep working, to keep saving, to keep growing, to keep adding to that. And there's a very strong justification you can make. It's very easy to justify, oh, this will give me a more comfortable retirement. This will allow me to provide for my family more. This will allow me to protect my family more. All very rational, all very reasonable, all very noble goals. But at the end of the day, what's the trade-off that you're making for continuing to do those types of things? So what are the key takeaways from this? Well, number one, focus on your specific numbers. What do you need to do to get to where you want to be? Number two, ask yourself the hard questions. Work longer, save more, defer retirement. Sometimes that's the easy way out. As much as work can be hard, as much as work can be different, if we're just continuing to do that because it's what we've always done, it's what we spend the last 20, 30, 40 years of our life doing, it's hard, but it's sometimes the easy way out. Sometimes the harder things are asking ourselves a question, like, what do I want to do with my life? What would I regret not doing if I continue down this path I'm currently going down? Am I living the life I want to live, and am I being intentional about it? Those are really the hard questions of making sure you're doing what you want to do and not working because it's comfortable, and working because it's what you know, and working because it doesn't require you to look at life in a difficult, hard way to see what do you really want out of it. So once you focus on your specific questions, once you've asked yourself the hard questions, the third step is learning that contentment. And this again is that mindset shift. Stop looking at your portfolio as the goal. Who cares if your portfolio goes from 500,000 to $1 million to 5 million to 10 million to $100 million? If you're not able to do the things that you want to do, if you're never able to fully enjoy it because you keep thinking in terms of more and more and more, it does not matter what that value is. That value is just designed to support what actually matters. So learn contentment by focusing on your portfolio as a means to an ends, not the ends in and of itself. When you can do that, when you can stop focusing on hitting that next milestone and moving those goalposts and doing it again and again and again, you'll be able to learn the contentment of enjoying what you have and knowing what you have, knowing what that can do for you, which is the most important piece. So can you be content while still continuing to work and grow and add to what you have? Absolutely. But again, contentment is a mindset shift. Contentment is something that comes from knowing what your enough is, knowing that you are on track to be there or already there, and then are living a life intentionally designed to support what you want most out of it. Thanks again for watching. This is James Conole with the Root Financial Partners. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to share it with someone else who you think could find value from it. And also be sure to like this video and subscribe for more content like this. And if you want more resources about how you can create a secure retirement, be sure to check out our podcast called Ready for Retirement. And finally, if you're interested in seeing how our services can help you create a secure retirement, check us out at rootfinancialpartners.com.